Okay, so quick overview. My name is Amie Dansby. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I work in games currently. I work for a robotic company. I previously worked at Marvel before Disney took over. Worked on Captain America, X-Men Destiny, Superhero Squad show. And I have a scholarship I started for the National Video Game Museum, and it's for girls in STEM. So I'm active in that. And I'm also active the makerspace area, which I think is kind of not quite as a familiar thing here, which kind of surprises me. I have a few 3D printers and lasers and all the fun stuff. So this is not in the user manual. Kind of a quick show of hands. How many people use Unity for like their jobs? Okay, so a few. Do you guys, like people just trying to do, I'm just trying to get an idea of what you guys have done. None?
Yeah,
The forefront?
No, just for fun.
Just for fun, okay. Ooh. Okay, so this is like just an overview of Unity's for their demo of kind of some of the stuff that they use. They've gotten, the engine is extremely powerful. It's used for more than just games. NASA's JPL program used it for some of their Mars rover landing as well as some medical simulations. So this is just a quick overview. Yay, okay, so just a quick overview since a lot of you actually don't use Unity. Unity is a physics engine and a game engine. It is known primarily for being a video game engine. If any of you have ever had to do anything to calculate physics, even like basic of what like the human weighs on Earth, that stuff is a pain in the butt, and Unity has done that all for you. They've implemented, they call it XR, but it's a combination of VR and AR, as well as like level design, world building. They've gotten into cinematography as of lately. Has anyone seen District 9 or Chappie? So that director, they have been going in and doing real-time rendering using the Unity engine for film, and they've cut down their like film time, I believe, to 6 months, which is insane to do this real-time rendering. I think they're doing all their calculations as well as their like facial capture. So, and this was actually, they went and filmed out in California, and they were able to do, I guess if you've seen District 9, it's all digital. So Unity is pushing for you can build once and you can deploy to everything. And I guess if you've used Unity, you kind of know that's true. Yeah. So if you have a Mac or an iOS device, you still have to do your build on your Mac. If you have an Xbox, you still have to be part of their program to publish to the Xbox. So it kind of gets into what happens when what you're doing is not listed up there. So we're going to still do it. So I guess the biggest thing is when you don't know what you're doing, you get into that point where you're just afraid. So I think everybody gets to that point, so you just can't be afraid to be like, I don't know what I'm doing, and there's no documentation to support it. Unity, there's another engine is called Unreal. That's actually what I used when I went to university. This is a book that I actually had when I went to school, and these are the game engines that were listed, and Unity was not even one of them. So over the past 10 years, they've pushed their engine is free to download, unless you make more than $100,000 a year on your game. So they have an asset store, which if you're not an artist, is an amazing thing because you can go and download, animated models and assets and get your game running with a prototype before you actually go in there and spend money on an artist. Oops. Okay, so where does Unity fall in this in the stack? You have your graphics, your sound, your game-specific code for any type of script that you're running on your player or your character, as well as networking. And then there is Unity. Unity follows like right and below your operating system, whether you're Windows specific, if you're console specific, if you're hardware specific. All of those have some type of documentation or framework for them, except for the stuff we're going to do today. So this is the fun thing when I get to introduce hardware to most software developers. These are usually fun expressions that go through everyone's mind. Some people like hardware, some people hate hardware, some people don't understand, some people don't have a project to work on. Is anyone dabbled with any type of hardware or hobby electronics or anything? Yes. What have you used?
Just Raspberry Pi.
Raspberry Pi?
Raspberry Pi.
Okay. I have. See, this is what happens when you participate. I have fun things too. So this is a circuit playground. It has LEDs built in. You don't have to do too much coding. So I have fun stuff. This is a Raspberry Pi. I think it's got a W, so it has built-in Wi-Fi. Okay. These are to incentivize. Oops. Okay. So Unity has excellent documentation when you are doing something that they have that's existing. So what happens when I typed in Arduino? Nothing comes up. Nothing. So where do you start? I have to use my IT crowd since I am here. Okay, these are kind of I'll put all these slides up on GitHub later as well, but these are just some of the software and the hardware I'm going to use. Unity, which is the engine, and Arduino has their own separate IDE as well. And UNO, the proton particle, which is a little IoT board, if anyone's familiar with that. Some little LEDs and Lego Mindstorms. Okay, anybody know what a microcontroller is? All right, what is it?
Well, it's a programmable board with a small processor that doesn't run any operation system, ideally. So you code directly against the hardware instead of coding against the operation system that runs on, right?
Yeah, it controls inputs and outputs as well. Yeah, good answer. All right, come up here, you can have something fun. Or I can give it to you after.
I'm running.
Didn't know it was going to be a workout class. Okay, that's a circuit playground. I can go over some of the hardware with y'all after. So these were a few people that had replies of what they thought a microcontroller was. So this person thought it was a tiny planet. Some of them are humorous, but I was doing like works and talks, and I would talk about microcontrollers, and then I realized people were like, what's a microcontroller? So, I mean, some of them are funny. And this one person says that it can manage complex tasks, and a microcontroller is like Donald Trump, and it's simple and can manage basic tasks with instruction. Somebody said it's an adorable little computer that can interact with the real world. This one was pretty good. And a device that runs a single program that cannot extend things like adding memory, but able to capture input and control outputs with the physical world, which was pretty much exactly what he said. So, and then this, Chris said it's a really annoying manager who is insecure about his knowledge of your abilities. So, the gist of it is you can buy really cheap hardware. I don't know if you guys have something like Dollar Store. You buy a little like toy that maybe just lights up. That's all it does. That's got a separate little microcontroller. You don't need a full computer for that. And all that's doing is maybe when you press one button, it's lighting up this toy. That's on like the simplest levels. Well, if I can go. What are the bells? Hang on. Maybe. It's okay, you guys can read them again. All right, so here's the fun thing. We'll go over, this is a Arduino. This is similar to a Raspberry Pi. They're an open source embedded microcontroller computer. So soldering was involved in this, so I figured this was not going to be a soldering class. So I soldered all this stuff before. Before I go deep into anything else, I just want to give you guys a basic overview. This is just Unity, and I have it connected to a pin 3, which I am triggering, and ground. That is the only thing I'm doing on this. And I have it connected through a script through Arduino. So if it'll play. I figured I wasn't going to bring a bunch of LEDs up here because that's not nearly as exciting, but this is just the basic to start. So I'm just connecting my script through Unity and connecting it through a COM port, which is just through USB, and it's saying, hey computer, I'm telling you to do something, and that something is turn on the light. And you set your pin high and low. Simple, but fun. That type of, I know that turning on an LED or a hello world is not like very exciting, but when there is no documentation on what you're doing and you figure out how to make it work, turning on like something as simple LED is like, it works, I got it, and then you can move on to a task that's more complicated. Another thing that I have been using Unity for is 3D printing. I have an obsession with 3D printing. You can take your model that you make in a computer and you can physically create that object. And if you're not like a very artistic person, that's an amazing thing because I can't draw a straight line without the use of a computer. So a lot of games we have art and assets and all that fun stuff. This is just a little game, and I just put this little Pac-Man guy in here just so you could get an idea. But the same type of file and model that is used in game is the same type of asset that you can 3D print. So I kind of went in and I was like, if you can have some way to connect between your game, your model, and your printer, all you have to do is just import your Autodesk files. If you're not an artist, there are assets already on the asset store, and you can 3D print these same models. All it does is it imports directly into your project. As you can see, he's there. He has no texture. But then you 3D print it, and here it is. So if y'all want to see. But this is done on a resin, on a Form 2 printer. But you guys can pass it around. But it's a solid object. It is the exact same model that is used in the game. And I was able just to download and connect it and print off my model. So this is another one. This is a Bluetooth. It is a Lego conductive bricks. And it is a, do you guys ever know the clap on, clap off? Like the sound sensor? So that's the same thing. I don't know if you could hear it. I actually do have that with me so you guys can play with that after. Actually, we can see if it'll, we have the brick. Okay, so clap really loud. Oh. Oh, we forgot a brick. Hang on, we forgot a brick. You have to complete the circuit. Oh, he has the bricks over there.
Again?
Well, now we need another brick because so the circuit is not complete, so it won't. But I brought all this stuff. You guys can play with this one after I find my remote. Okay, so Unity scripts. Unity uses Mono, which, you got opinions about Mono? I think everyone does. But they're still, whenever it's compiling, and Unity has its own implementation, and it's trying to standardize that Mono. So that's why when you build once, your game can deploy to multiple consoles or devices. They have been a little behind on their .NET. They just updated, I think in 2017.1. I think they're up to 4.6 for .NET. So you can create your own scripts, and those will compile as well. This is what I was talking about. They use the common the CIL. So when you run your Unity game and your project, your code is being executed. It's not your C# that's being executed. It's their own assembly bytecode. There's other things like the RFID and the NFC. So Lego Dimensions uses that if you guys have kids or adults like me that play that. And they're just tiny little discs, and they actually interact with just a gamepad that's connected to your Xbox or your console. So that piece of hardware is not one of their deployment. I know they are a specialty program and device, but the NFC and RFID are extremely common. I was able to get some of the NFC. This is just an Arduino and a shield. So if you ever have a badge when you go into your office, or like a key card or anything, or like me, I have an NFC implant in my hand. So I was able to, well, the first thing I tried to do was scan this little guy and see if I could read the tag data and write it to my hand. So whenever I would put it on the card, it would recognize and it would pull up, and then I could say I am Batman. But they have a little bit of security, so it's, just because I got an implant in my hand, and because you can. But so they do have a little bit of security on this, this gamepad that they have created, where this stuff is not quite as safe, but it's still fun. All right. Since you mentioned Raspberry Pi and Arduino, they're both very similar. They're both open source projects. I do have a few other. I'm trying to think if I have other ones to give y'all, and their IDE. So since this is not one of the standard platforms that Unity actually supports, they don't include those libraries. So we can use a serial port, though, which is through any like micro USB. That's just saying, the computer saying, hey, I'm telling you to do something. And if you see something called baud rate, that's just the speed of rate for transfer. These are all of my schematics, and there's PCB layouts. So if you guys wanted to print out your boards, those are all on the GitHub link. So this is a wiring diagram. I think this is probably one of the most intimidating things to people that are software. It's like, what happens if you put, 5 volt in ground? Well, find out, but make sure you're in somewhere that's fire safe. Because that stuff does happen. Okay, so I don't know if anyone recognizes this, this source code. There is this guy that goes around and finds source code from movies and tries to figure out what the actual code is from. So this is from the very first Iron Man movie, where he's trapped in the cave and he's trying to build this suit of armor to get out. And this is the suit he made, and this was the source code that was showed. This is actually from a Lego Mindstorm brick. So Lego, that means Iron Man's pretty much like powered by Lego, which makes that amazing. But Lego, all of their code is open source as well, and it's just a kernel of Linux. So if you want anything to work for between Unity, I've had some success, and I'll show that demo at the end. But that's, I don't know, that's a fun little fact. It's okay, we'll see it again. So that was the Lego Mindstorm. So kind of going over some examples for your serial communication. I guess the biggest thing in Unity, when you tell something, wake up and hi, that's saying, should I always listen for this event? I'm trying to compare to, if it's so you've done in games. Hey, I'm always listening for this device to press this button. So the problem, though, with some of these little microcontrollers and these boards is their memory. So if you're always polling for some type of device, then something like this can crash. So all you really want to do is recognize, hey, when this is pressed down, I'm going to do something. So instead, and if you've done anything, it's not like you have a computer where it's, you have a ton of memory. Nope. So that's just a little example of what not to do. And this is just kind of my thing. Whenever you do your button trigger events, your data press down, I don't know. I usually just put it on a new line because we're not monsters. But let's see. So for serial input, these, so Unity has their scripts, which is just your C# script. All you do is, you said you use it in Visual Studio. You don't have to use Mono. You can import any of those scripts into Unity, and you can tell it what to do. So this is just telling us, hey, we need to open a serial event to connect to our device. So these are some ideas kind of that people have gone and done. Simple lighting up LEDs, which doesn't seem very exciting in itself, but they actually make these Lego bricks that light up, and LEDs work the same. So I actually have another one. It's a 3D printed. It still has supports, but if somebody wants this. Yes, yes, it's a 3D printed Lego thing. You got one already. Got it? Why? What happened? Shh, it's noisy. Wait, stack. So there's servos, put on, oh, got it. Measure temperature, photocell motors, Bluetooth. The got it. ESP8266, those are IoT boards. Those are pretty standard. So if you have any projects that you want to work on, I'd be curious. Do you guys have anything that you'd like to interface with Unity? I'm always curious kind of like what people are doing. Yeah? No? All right, so what would you do? So the that little Proton, the one that's like they're $5, I think, or maybe they're a little bit more than that. But you can run, I believe, Vuforia on that, which is like an AR. I have some strong feelings about them, though. After their free version, I think they charge you. It's like a penny per database call, and it's it's pretty pricey. Yeah. So let's see. Okay, so this is what I was talking about for what they're using for film. And this is really interesting to me because I really like costumes and cosplay projects, and you spend so much time making some of these costumes. If anyone saw the Jungle Book, all of those, like the tigers and everything, all of that was done in Unity as well. And this is for Oat Studio, the same people I was talking about that did District 9 and Chappie. So they're going in, they're making their real costumes, and they're going in and they're taking pictures and scanning them and, simulating this fabric. And then they're importing all of this into Unity, and it's cutting down, their entire, I think he said they're able to graphically compute all of those geometry, and that's what makes that amazing. This is not something that Unity had supported, and they were like, all right, we're spending this much time on development for an artist to go in there and create, a texture or do the physics for something like this that's moving. And they're like, why can't we just scan it out of a real costume and be able to go in there? So it's pretty cool. And they actually brought, at Unity Unite, they brought some of the costumes up there so you could see. So that detail is pretty sweet. Okay. So this is something kind of was a big deal when we worked on the first Thor game, was the cape. So in movies or animation, you can control whatever the animation needs to do. But in a game, when your character is moving to the right or to the left, that's controlled by a player. That is a real time. So the amount of geometry and having to cache all of that data for Thor's cape was a pretty intensive process, probably more so than we thought it was going to be. And that's what makes something like scanning those images of those people and bringing in that simulation, that's what makes that beneficial. There's another game that's coming out. It's called Cyberpunk 2077. I believe it's the same people that are doing The Witcher 3. And they are actually going in and, they're scanning their model and they're doing all their animation and their rigging post-production using, I believe they have their own engine, but it's the same concept. So you can see here where they're going in and doing that. All right, now the fun stuff. Oh, also, I will be at PubCon trying to make jokes. So that's on Friday, I believe. All right, so let's do the fun stuff. So I don't need the mic, yeah? Or can you hold the mic? You want to be my assistant?
Sure.
Okay. Hopefully I don't, break anything.
What do you want me to do? Just get your mic stand.
Or you can talk, you can tell jokes. Be like, here. Okay. So this is a little Lego Mindstorm motor that I had. I had this connect and through Unity. So whenever you trigger an event in Unity, I'll try not to actually. So that to me is pretty fun. So when you trigger the event in the game, it actually will trigger the motor. And it's just as simple as just, turning the rotation of a motor. The motor, it doesn't have to be a Lego Mindstorm, but I like Lego stuff, so. And it actually shoots, pretty far. Maybe. Wait. Oh, no. Well, if we never find the little balls, that's okay. I lost some at the hotel, too. So. All right, wait. I don't want to bump anyone. Let's see. All right. So if you want to play with that, you can. I'm trying to think. Okay, so I'll put up all the slides and some of the source code and the asset projects. I'm trying to think what else. Yeah, feel free to bother me on Twitter and the internets. Yeah, but if anyone wants to come play with us, you're more than welcome to. If you can find there's one. It'll be like golf. You have to go find the ball, though. Let's see. I have a few little Pac-Men, too, if you guys want them, that I 3D printed. All right, any questions? I know it's a wide range of things. All right.
Are there any interesting places we can find, whether there are some demos and tutorials we can start from scratch and try something?
As far as Arduino and that kind of stuff?
Or Raspberry Pi,
Yeah, so that's kind of the thing. There's a few, I've seen one guy on YouTube that has a few tutorials for Arduino. So I think the biggest thing is you probably should understand how serial communication works. There's also things like I2C. Do you know anything about any of that kind of stuff? So I think if you understand that and you have a firm grasp of that, all you're doing for your Arduino code, like the one for the LED, you're just saying, hey, set this pin high. And Unity is saying, hey, I see an event was triggered. Don't overwhelm yourself, because I think if you're going in and you try to do everything at once and then nothing works, especially with hardware, software developers, I think we think we can solve everything with software. And then you realize, oh, if it doesn't have power, I can't even turn it on. Look at Arduino's webpage. They have basic tutorials. The one that I've had the most success with for Unity is the Uno. So there's a few other versions, and I'm not exactly sure what the difference were or why people had problems, but I would start with the Uno.
Has anyone published anything on the asset store?
Yes, there is one. There is one guy. He doesn't actively support it, and I did download it. It's free. It is called. Should I wrote it down? It's called Unity or Arduino or something, and it's free. But when you start to go look at the Arduino scripts, and if you understand what it's doing, you can do that on your own, because all the stuff he has is very, very simple. At least as far as, I mean, you're not going and making Lego dimensions with that. That would be my kind of thing. There is there is a guy who has open source hardware for the EV3, that's supposedly supposed to work with Unity. I couldn't get it to work. You have to install like their actual software and not Lego software, as well as the, I think you need a SIM card on it, something like that. Yeah, look at Arduino and you can look on the Unity asset store. There is the one, it's free. Like I said, that guy does not support it though. What else is there? There's not much, and that kind of like makes it difficult. It's like, where do you post? Like, where do you post the stuff that you've found? So like all these little projects that I've played around with, it's like you just hope that someone is Googling and comes up and is trying to do the same thing that you do. We had an issue when at our work, we were trying to find something, and we went to Google, and we couldn't, there's one person that had the same question, and we're like, oh, this is amazing, and there's actually an answer. Look in the forum, it was somebody else on our team that had answered it. So it's things like that. I think the biggest thing, thank you. I think the biggest thing, games aren't really open source and we don't share because you make money. So like when I worked at Marvel, the biggest thing there was brand assurance. Like the Hulk wears purple pants. The Hulk always wears purple pants. So when the game was ready, the trailer was ready for E3, but the movie trailer was not ready. And the movie has first rights to show new costumes, to show new, shields, hammers, whatever. And they're worried about brand assurance. That's their biggest thing, I think, maybe. There's still some interesting, how do I put this? Until Disney bought them. Making games, so if you're going to share any of your code and you're going to put your code on GitHub, like you have an open source project, there's things you got to think about. If you have art assets that you may be paid for in the Unity asset store, you got to be careful. You got to make sure that other person is able to download those assets. You have to make sure they're able to access everything on your project. That's what makes that kind of hard. I don't know if anyone ever played Zork. It was like an old text adventure game from like '88. And they actually released the source code for that, 30-something years later. And that's kind of neat, but no one's actively keeping up with that game anymore, so they're not making money on that. And that's something that, I feel like I don't quite have the answer for as far as like open source games. Like how and where do you support that? So, any other intention? Yes?
My company, we use an agency for CGI, television commercials and things like that. Off the top of your head, what's the chances of those assets being audited by Unity?
So he said they have CGI assets that they use a company, and he was asking if they can be imported into Unity. So do you know what program they use? So there is. So a lot of the CGI programs that they use, you can import into Unity. It just depends on the file. Unity has something called Unity Connect, where you can find an artist that knows how to use Unity. So if we are going to outsource like an artist for something, it's like, hey, we needed this to work with Unity. We don't want to spend 10 hours of our day trying to figure out how to import this model in here and get the animation. They give you a package, you import that package, and it works. So that's the thing, being an artist or an animator or somebody that does shaders that's specifically for Unity. But Unity supports like all the Autodesk. So that's the little Pac-Man that I 3D printed. That's an Autodesk product, so you can export that file as an STL, and that STL is what a 3D printer understands that translates to G-code or something like that. Yeah, but depending on a program, yeah, you can. All right, next questions. Anything goes. Yes, no, maybe so. I have more things to give away. Yeah?
participating in the Pi Wars in April.
Uh-huh.
So one of the challenges is build a launcher like that one.
Ah,
and
perfect.
That hits targets. So how would I use the physics bit of Unity to, can I?
Yeah, so he asked how to use like the physics in Unity to communicate with something that's like in the real world. So the little launcher guy. So this motor only has a rotation of 360 degrees. So if you're having, say you have something that has a camera on it and you want your camera to look up and down, well, if you don't have a servo on that little camera, you can't look up and down. You're only limited to what your hardware can do. I'm trying to think if you do any type of like launcher. So you're trying to recognize if it hits the target?
No, so the launcher is on a robot. You can move the robot around
Okay.
and aim for targets at a particular distance, and the launcher has to go hit the target.
You could always use, they have sensors that measure your depth or how close you are to objects as well.
Right.
You should look, Arduino has one and it supports they're a distance sensor.
The ultrasonic sensors.
Yes. You could use it. They're pretty accurate too. And if you use them with Arduino, they work really well. I mean, for cheap little like, what else are you trying to do? So you want to recognize the distance in between?
So once we have the distance, maybe calculate the angle at which the launcher needs to be able to launch a projectile and hit the target.
So we kind of ran into that too, and it's like, do you calculate that? Are you reading the data from the hardware to Unity, or do you read you send the data to the device from Unity? Because you have to worry about two things like latency with that. So are you going to be doing like wireless or Bluetooth?
Can I build an executable out of? Can I model this in my computer and have an executable that sits on the Raspberry Pi?
Yeah, so there's some fun things with that. I've also seen some people try to take and build a Unity, like an APK, which is like for Android, and run like a flavor and run that on a Raspberry Pi. I don't know like the success for that. We had prototype stuff and we used like onboard Raspberry Pi Wi-Fi, and we had issues with like the frequency of devices in a room. So not so much like just bandwidth. It's like, all these devices in the same little area, you're on the same channel and you can't even get through. So that makes that fun.
Thanks.
What else? I have some other little 3D printing things too that were from the games. They're little like I think from Mario. From Mario? I didn't take the supports off though. Sanding's the fun part of 3D printing. Yes, no, maybe so. No one here likes 3D printing? Boo. Oh, you do? What kind do you have? Anybody else want one of these? They're pretty cool. I should. All right, any other questions before? Y'all are welcome to come shoot this little cannon thing. Yes, no? All right, we're finished. I'll turn this off. Yay.